You're listening to the Live Free podcast. I'm your host, Christine, certified life coach, pain to power mentor, and creator of Embody You Mindset Mastery School. I'm here today to discuss living life after disease, disaster, or adversity, to discuss living life fully once again, a life of hope, peace, and resiliency, a life fully embodied. I utilize the lessons that I learned going through not one, but two primary cancers. I'm here today to guide you to the life of your dreams, turn your pain into power, and lead you back to yourself. Hi, everyone. Okay, so let's talk about balance. What do I mean by balance? Okay, we've heard that word. It's almost become a trigger word at this point for so many people, because it's this elusive thing that everybody says you should have, and yet it contradicts so much of what everyone says, you should do in life. Okay. So what do I mean by that? So these shoulds and shouldn'ts, you should eat healthy. You should have a green lawn. You should work a full-time job. You should meditate. All of these shoulds. And then shouldn'ts would be, you shouldn't eat junk food, and you shouldn't drink alcohol, and all of these different things. And then they throw in this trigger word, balance. And I'm going to tell you right now that if you follow the shoulds and shouldn'ts, then you do not have balance. You are very much to one side of the teeter-totter. You're this health guru, or you're, rebelling against the shoulds and shouldn'ts, and you're this couch potato. And what nobody talks about is the okayness of both, whenever it needs to be. And the way I like to explain it is like you have this teeter-totter, okay? So you put weight on both sides. And if the weight is balanced, then, it's hovering and it's good and it's there. But it's in a delicate balance. The slightest wind or, placing a dime on one side is going to cause that to tip, right? So what I'm saying is that true balance is, instead of being on the outside of the teeter-totter, is to instead walk to the center. And now you've got true balance. You're no longer on this teeter-totter. And that's authenticity. In my opinion, true balance is authenticity to who you are and what you need in life. And that is specific to the person. If you are authentic with who you are, you might find that you hate the gym. You don't like it, but you like dancing, and that lights you up. So that's authenticity. Now you're doing joyful movement. So you're not shoulding, I should go to the gym. Now you're saying, I want to find authentic balance. Movement is important because part of balance is health, but I'm going to dance because I like dancing, and I think that is true unwavering balance, is when you are authentic to you. So stop should and shoulding on yourself. Because it's not helping you. And this shame spiral that we have around, what we should and shouldn't do is it robs you of your balance, number one. 2, it feels terrible. And 3, it just doesn't serve you. So don't do it. It's my opinion. So this transmutes to everything. So this can be balance in your relationships. It can be balance in your job. It can be balance in yourself and in your everyday life and your self-care regimes. I used to think that in order to have balance, I had to control my environment to be this balanced environment. So what do I mean by that? So that would be, I woke up in the morning, I drank a bottle of water, always, followed by some fruit, organic only, followed by 2 pages of journaling, followed by a 20-minute meditation, followed by usually like an hour of yoga or so. And then I would put my crystal necklace on and I would go off into my day. And did it feel good? Absolutely. But there were days that I woke up and I was not in the mood for it. Not at all. And I'm not talking about like skipping it entirely, but there was things where I just I didn't want to do it. Not even a little bit. It didn't feel even expansive to me, but I did it anyway because I felt that, in order to have a happy life, you have to always grind, and always have so much vigor and come to realize that although chasing pleasure is not the goal here, there is always effortful action. But the goal is to do effortful action in a way that makes you feel expansive. Because if you took one component out of my morning routine, my day was ruined. My husband woke up in the middle of my journaling and started asking me about the house. Done day. No good. And that truly is the outside of the teeter-totter. That's my husband putting a dime on the one side and then having the whole thing collapse, right? And again, I'm not promoting laziness. I'm not promoting, moving out from your regimes because you just don't feel like it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is reduce some of the rigidity of what you should and shouldn't do, and do follow some pleasure. Do start to be okay with, the fact that, that morning you don't feel like doing an hour of yoga. And I'm not saying don't move. I'm saying you feel like going for a walk instead. Okay? So that's the differentiating factor here. That's what's important, is that, I don't want people to, listen to this and say, oh, Christine told me that I can just chill out, sit and drink coffee, flip on Facebook. And you know what? I at times that's appropriate. But you still have to put effortful action in, but it needs to be authentic. So I'm circling back here, right? This authentic, effortful action that suits you and that fits you and that sets your soul free. And that's not going to be the same every day. And I know that we are creatures of habit, and regimes can be really good for us, and really, really beneficial. But releasing your death grip to your regime, your feeling of I should do my regime, whether I feel like it or not, whether or not the family's over, and they would like to have coffee, where you could be present. You could sit and you could have fruit and you could skip your workout that day and you could sit with the family and you could enjoy. But instead, you've got this death grip on your regime to the point where, you feel uneasy and uncomfortable and unhappy sitting there drinking coffee as opposed to doing your regime. And that was me. It truly was. I couldn't be present with anything unless I was controlling my environment. Going back to the part where, with controlling your environment, is that everything needed to be just so in order for me to be happy. Come to realize, after going through everything that I went through, that action does not equal happiness. Happiness equals happiness. And I know that sounds so simple, but, almost asinine, but it is so true. If you have this internal knowing of like, I'm okay and this is okay, then there's no need to control every facet of your environment, because you can settle in. And I know so many teachers have talked about this hundreds of times. And there was one teacher who described it like sitting in a canoe. Are you paddling as hard as you can up the river? Or are you just going to put the paddle in your boat and let it take you? And that presence, that can create such beautiful balance in your life of, releasing some of that need for, pressing so hard in all your shoulds and all your shouldn'ts and that sort of thing. And doing a little bit more releasing, and settling. Surrender is not what we believe to be this, dirty word, I was pressing so hard and I couldn't, so I had to surrender. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is surrender is the allowing of what is, what truly is, and that, my dear friends, is what I believe to be balance is. And, if what is that you'd rather go on a walk than do yoga that day, then you do so. Okay? So a story that explains this is when I went to do my yoga teacher training, which I did in Mexico at an amazing yoga teacher training camp called Yandara. We did a task, and what that task was this vision journey where we went off into the wilderness of Mexico desert in Baja California Sur, and we were meant to sleep on the ground on the beach and pack no food but pack water and a little bit of food. They're responsible, but and wake up on this beach and speak to nobody and be in silence for an entire day. And that was daunting to me. Not because I wasn't okay with being out of my comfort zone, but it was because I'm terrified of spiders and scorpions. And for good reason. In the middle of the desert, I'm sure that spiders and scorpions are a real risk. Well, and I know they are because I saw scorpions while I was there. So my point is that I had to ask myself, and a very important question, and this highlights my point quite well. Are you avoiding the discomfort that is, going out into the wilderness and pushing yourself into something that you're not comfortable with? Or are you honoring who you are? Okay? And for me, the honoring of who I was, not stopping the food. Going ahead and stopping the food. So not eating a bunch of food was okay. Drinking water only was okay with me. Not speaking for an entire day, totally fine. Going out into the wilderness by myself, could do it. Was it uncomfortable to do all those things? Absolutely. But the one thing that I wasn't comfortable doing was laying on a beach where the scorpions and spiders could get to me, and I fought with myself for a really long time about that, and I felt bad, and I felt like, I'm not having this spiritual transition like everybody else is, and that sort of thing, because I'm weak, and I should be pushing harder and all of these sorts of things. And I didn't go. So like I stayed in the tenting area, and I instead went off out to the beach and sat under the moon for a good period of time, until late into the evening. And then I went back to the safety of my tent. I slept in my tent. I spoke to no one. I got up. I didn't eat. I drank my water. I went out into the wilderness. I spoke to nobody for 24 hours. It was an amazing journey. It was beautiful. And I had a ton of transformation during that time. By honoring who I was, that journey became possible for me. So that spiritual awakening became possible for me. Because when I was laying there on my, 21st hour, completely by myself, just staring out at the ocean, I had this vision of like this really big Buddha rolling over and looking at me and saying, nothing is as it seems. It all just is. And I knew in that moment for myself what that meant is that there is no 10-step process to enlightenment. There is your process. And for me, that didn't include scorpions and spiders. And I came out of that so full and so true. And all of that guilt and shame that was telling me that I'm not enough because I'm not willing, to lay on the beach at 4 a.m. in the middle of the Mexican desert. Which is amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like, depending on the person, I'm sure some people would love that adventure. But ergo, that's my point, is that, if that speaks to you, you're going to get enlightenment. If it doesn't, you're going to sit there shaking in the middle of the desert, telling yourself like, this was a terrible idea. And then how can enlightenment find you? So it's about that razor's edge between allowing discomfort to be real and allowing yourself to have this, experience, and honoring who you are to the core of your being. And this is unlike what most leaders are going to tell you. They're going to tell you, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I'm going to tell you, if it's just fear, then do it anyway. But if there's something that bridges and borders your values, then know that it's okay to set a boundary around that. Okay? So going back to balance, what truly is balance? I believe that it is being authentically you and finding the balance between all of those things. And it comes out to compassion, having compassion for who you are as a person. And putting in those effortful actions, those expansive, effortful actions, very important, while still honoring those times where you just let go and you sit. And then you don't feel like what I used to describe as constantly walking through whipped cream, as opposed to air. Like I just felt like everything was just a little bit hard. And I now know that the reason that everything felt hard was because I was constantly in action, always in action. This rigidity of, this kind of left brain thinking of, push, go, all the time, feel the fear, do it anyway, feel the fear, do it anyway. And I'm telling you that, you're putting weight on one side of the teeter-totter in that case, and you're going to burn out. And I don't believe that it is the sole reason that I got cancer, but I would say that I was a very burnt out 32-year-old, believing that I was part of this wellness movement. And when in fact, I just had a really long laundry list of wellness practices. So much so that I couldn't even fit them into a 24-hour day, and I was cutting out people and presence in order to control my environment so that I felt this semblance of balance. And it was all a facade. I didn't realize it at the time. I thought it was true. I thought it was real. I would have been that coach who told you, if you want happiness, you gotta push, you gotta work till your eyeballs bleed. I would have been that person. And I tell you, when you face your own mortality, you learn what's real and what's true. And I'll tell you that I listen to rock music now because it's playing. I don't refrain from a super sugary drink because they're actually really damn good. So every once in a while, I have a really sugary drink. And I eat pierogies and smokies now. And I know that so many people in the health and wellness industry would say to me like, Christine, you had cancer. You need to nix the smokies and pierogies, and you cannot have the Pombe, And I'm here to tell you, you can eat the pierogies and smokies, and you can have the Pombe. And the reason that you can do that is because you are sitting in authenticity and compassion for yourself. I'm not talking about biting into the donut and instantly telling yourself that you are not good enough and that, you failed again and you ate this donut and shame on you. I'm talking about eating the donut and saying, I'm going to enjoy this bite. I'm really going to settle into this. I'm really going to enjoy it, and be okay with it. Have compassion and authenticity for the fact that I love donuts, which I don't love donuts, so I don't eat them. But I do love chips and dip. So that's my thing. I eat the chips and dip. And I don't just hammer them as fast as I can, trying to get them into my mouth before my shame and guilt, comes up for me, before I realize oh my God, I'm eating chips. I now instead, I eat the damn chips and I enjoy them. But you know what I ended up finding was when you create balance in your life and when you start to feel more balanced, you have 10 chips and then you're like, I'm good. I'm happy here. And as opposed to 25 before your shame and guilt catches up to you and you beat yourself up for the next 20 minutes, hour, day, I was that person. So to wrap up, the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, they do not serve you. The shame, guilt, and not enoughness that you're feeling in order to perpetuate good habits is working against you. It truly is. And balance is not what we previously believed it to be, or I did anyway. This, poncho wearing, lotus tattoo, sitting in this etheric smile with your legs crossed and your fingers in the mudra. That is only part of balance. It's a beautiful part. I love it, obviously. I'm wearing a knitted poncho right now. But true balance is honoring every part and being authentically you in every single way. So I hope that you've been able to gain some expansion from this, and that this has helped you to find some compassion and love and kindness towards yourself as you search for balance, as we all search for balance, as we all search for freedom of our own shackles. And I hope that you go out there today and you live more free, more wholeheartedly, and more openly. So much love to you all. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you found expansion with this last episode, then that means that others will too. And the best way to get the word out about the podcast is by leaving a review. I would be so grateful if you could leave me a review and let me know how you felt about the podcast. Included in the show notes will be everything that we talked about today, including all of my transformative programs. Change is just on the horizon, my friend.